This is our continuation about the reliability sa ating psych assessment ng libro ni Cohen at Kaplan. Okay, the nature of the test. Pasensya na po, may ingay yung background namin. First is the nature of the test. Ano nga ba yung nature ng test natin? The nature of the test will be often determine the reliability metric. Some consideration include the number one siguro is the test item are homogeneous or heterogeneous in nature. Homogeneous test items, it measures the single factor and functionally uniform throughout. This is a internal consistency tends to be high if the test measure a one single factor all throughout. The test is said to be homogeneous in items. So, ganyan. Kapag heterogeneous test items naman, means nito is measures multiple factors and tends to have low internal consistency estimate. Second characteristic, the characteristic ability or trait being measured is pursued to dynamic or statistic. Okay. Nature of the test. Yung dynamic po natin dito. Yung dynamic characteristics. A trait, state, or ability pursued to every changing as a function of situational and cognitive experience. Estimate of internal consistency would be appropriate because it only needs one administration. Okay? Sa static characteristic naman po, a trait, state or ability pursued to be relatively unchanging, such as intelligence. Test, retest, or parallel alternative form can be used since static characteristics are relatively stable across time. Okay? The range of the test score or is not restricted. Ito naman pong range of the test score or is not restricted is restriction of range or variance if the variance of either variable in a correlation analysis is restricted by the sampling procedure used, then the resulting correlation coefficient tend to be lower. Inflation of range or variance in a variance of either variance is correlation analysis is inflated by the sampling procedure, then the result of correlation coefficient tends to be higher. Okay? Dito naman po tayo the test is speed or a power test. Power test, then the time limit is long enough to allow test takers to attempt all items, and if some items are so difficult that no test takers is able to obtain a perfect score. In the speed test naman po, meron ba ako dito ng speed test? Yan. Speed test, generally consistent in terms of uniform level of difficulty. Difficulty typically an uniform low, so that when given generous time limits, all test takers should be able to complete all the test items correctly. A measure of reliability of the speed test should be reflect on consistency of response speed. The reliability of the test should not be calculated from a single administration of that test with a single time limit. Okay? The test is or is not criterion reference test is designed to provide an indication of whether the test takers stand with respect to some variables or correlation. Unlike norms, reference tests, criterion reference tests tend to contain material that has been mastered in hierarchical fashion. Okay? In criterion reference test, a measure of reliability depends on the variability of the test score. How different the scores are from one another. Okay? However, the critical issue of the user of this is whether or not a certain score has been achieved. Okay? So yan, let's proceed siguro kahit mahaba to. The true score model of measurement and alternative tests to it. Okay. First, we have the classical test or CTT. Okay. Assume that each person has a true score that would be obtained if there were no errors in measurement. However, because measuring instruments are imperfect, the score obtained for each person almost always differs from the person's true ability or characteristic. Also refers to as the true score model of measurement. The difference between the true scores and the observant score result from measuring error. Okay? Itong X is observed score and yung T is true score at yung E ay error. Pwede rin natin yung ibaliktad yung ating formula. Okay? One assumption is that error of measurement is random. All true systematic errors are acknowledged. they are less likely to force investigators to make wrong conclusions. Right? It's assumed that the true score of the individual will not change with repeatedly application of the same test because of random errors. However, repeated application of the sum of the same test can produce different scores. Random error is responsible for the distribution of the test. Since the basic sampling theory tells us that the distribution of random errors is bell-shaped, thus the center of the distribution should represent the true score, and the dispersion around the mean of distribution should display the distribution of the sampling errors. Theoretically, the standard deviation of the distribution of error for each person tells us about the magnitude of measurement error, because usually assume that the contribution of random errors will be the same for all people. CTT, okay, uses the standard deviation of error as a basic measure of error. Usually it is called standard error of measurement. Okay? Assume that the measurement is influenced by error randomly. You can say that the distribution of scores given by the test will be normal. Most score will be close to the actual or true score. Scores that generally different from the true score will occur less frequently. The mean of the distribution of the score from repeatedly application of the rubber yardstick will be estimated of the table's true height. The standard deviation will be the standard error of measurement. Right? The standard deviation tells us something about the average deviation around the mean. Standard error of measurement tells us on the average how much the score varies from the true score. Right? In general, error does not contain the test result because error will always be part of the measurement process. Okay? Most widely used model because of this simplicity. Okay? Punta naman tayo sa dominant sampling theory. This model considers the problem created by using a limited number of items to represent a large and more complicated construct. The term dominant is used when you describe an extremely large collection of items. Some authors prefer the term universal or population to describe the same concept. Okay? In other, to get the true score of the construct, a person needs to answer all the items from the universe of items related to the construct being measured. However, this is empirical and impossible. The model purpose to give the sample of items that best represent the construct. As some sample gets large, it represents the domain more and more accurately. As the result, the greater the number of the items, the higher the reliability. Given that items are random draw from a given dominant, each test or group of the item should yield an unbiased estimate of the true score. Because of the sampling error, however, different random sampling of the item might have different estimate of the true score. The distribution of this estimate should be random and normally distributed. We can create many random parallel tests by drawing repeated random sample of item from the same domain. Domain sampling model address the error caused by biased item sampling method. Okay? Tama. Again, the domain sampling error estimate can extend to which specific source of variation under defined construction are contributing to the test score. Right? Consider problem created by using a limited number of items to represent the large and more complicated construction. Ano ba ba? Okay, dito tayo sa face set. According to the generalizability theory, even the exact same condition of all the fates in the universe, the exact same test score should be obtained universe score. Okay? Sa ating decision study naman po, ito, ginagamitan natin siya ng systematic error ang ating dominant sampling theory. Okay? Item response. We focus in the item difficulty. Okay? Latent trait theory. Latent trait theory. Itong item response theory natin. A system of assumption about measurement and the extent to which item measure the traits. Okay? The item response theory, the computer is used to focus on the range of the item difficulty that helps assess an individual's ability level. In this theory, if you got several easy items correct, the computer will them move to more difficult item. Okay? in our difficult item, the item response theory, guys, is the new model in which the computer is used to focus the range of the item difficulty that help assess an individual ability level. It also called the latent theory, Ay, nalipat pala. Latent theory. It also called latent theory trait theory because contract being measured is physically unobservable. State another way is latent. And because the construct being measured may be trait, the CTT requires that exactly the same test items be administered to each person, which may be problematic since item may be too hard or too easy depending on the person's level of ability. The item response theory naman po, if the person gets several easy items correct, the computer might quickly move more difficult items. If the person gets several difficult items wrong, the computer moves back to the area of item difficulty where the person gets some items right and some wrong. Okay? Samples of two characteristics of items within an IRT framework are the difficulty level of an item and the item's level of discrimination. The item may be viewed as varying in terms of as well as sige, sabihin mo wait lang. Sabihin mo na CR. Discrimination items may be viewed as varying in terms of this as well as other characteristics. Difficulty, the attributes of not being easy accomplished, solved, or comprehends. The discrimination level is the degree to which an item differs among people with higher or lower level of traits ability or whether it is that being measured. Ayun, guys. Siguro tapusin ko muna dito. Kasi po, aalis po kami. Sige, yun lang po. Thank you.